So for this problem, what we can do is take the denominator, right? Leave this alone, but factor out a x squared from this entire expression. So we get x squared, x minus 3, right? Is if we multiplied x squared times x cubed, x squared times negative 3, x squared. So we get the same thing. Now what we can do is factor it one more time, but this time factor the entire thing with the x minus 3. Because if you multiply this by this, right? If we multiply this x minus 3 by x squared, we get x squared times x minus 3, and x minus 3 times 1 is equal to x minus 3. Okay, so now since we have all of that, we can do partial fractions now. So how do we do partial fractions? Well, we keep the original equation and then put a and then bx plus c, because a is for why we only have one variable for this is because there's only one x, right? But since there's an x squared, we need bx and then plus c. Okay, so now since we have that, what we can do is multiply each side by x minus 3 and x squared plus 1. So we multiply both sides by that, and then what ends up happening is since this is multiplied by the entire expression, we get a times x minus 3, x squared plus 1, and then bx plus c, the entire thing multiplied by x minus 3, x squared plus 1. Now, for x minus 3 and x squared plus 1, right, so we see that some things can cancel. So right here, this will cancel. And over here, x squared plus 1 will cancel. So we are left with negative, and remember that since we multiply this, these will cancel. So we'll be left with negative 3x minus 1 is equal to a x squared plus 1 plus bx plus c x minus 3. So now what we can do is we can just plug something in. So when we plug something in, we want something to go to 0. So for example, I chose x equals 3. So if I plugged in 3 right here, it'll become 0. This entire thing will go to 0. So as I show right here, this entire thing will go to 0. Because I plugged in 3 for everything, right? So for example here, I plugged in 3, it's 3b plus c, but since it's being multiplied by 0, this entire thing will go to 0. Over here, I plugged in 3, so that'll be 9 plus 1 is 10. Over here, 3, negative 3, negative 9 minus 1 is negative 10. So this will all go to 0, so it'll be negative 10 is equal to 10a. Now divide 10 by each side. For a, we get negative 1. So now since we have that, we can find the other variables. So what we can do is we can take a, right? So in the previous one, it was this, a x squared plus 1. So now I plugged in negative 1 for this. So once again, I'm just going to choose a number that will make something 0. So I'm going to choose x equals 0. So what that'll do is make this 0, right? So it'll make it negative 3. It'll make b 0. So I'll be left with c, right? Because 0, if I plug in 0 for x, it'll be b times 0. So it'll just be c left. And then 0 here will make it negative 3, so c times negative 3. Over here, it'll be 0, so it'll be plus 1 times negative 1, right here, right? Negative 1 times 1. And then over here, it'll make, if I plug in 0, it'll be negative 3 times 0, which will just leave you with negative 1. So with all of this, it'll be negative 1, and then negative 3c. So then if I add 1 to each side, this will go away, and this will become 0. 0 is equal to negative 3c. Divide by negative 3, and you get 0 is equal to c. So now we have two of the variables. The final variable we need is b. So I can, for example, for the previous one, for c, I plugged in 0 for c, and so now since I know that it's 0, I can get rid of it, so it'll just be bx. And then for a, I know it was negative 1, so I just plugged in negative 1. So now we have this entire expression. Once again, I choose a number that will make something go to 0, so I'm going to choose x equals 1. So what does that do? Well, I plug in 1 right here, negative 3, minus 1 is negative 4. If I plug in 1 right here, 1 squared is just 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Over here, 1, right, so b, and then 1 minus 3 is negative 2, so negative 2 times just b is negative 2b. Now with all of that, what we can do is add 2 to each side, so that gets us negative 2 is equal to negative 2b, divide by negative 2 on each side, and we get b is equal to 1. Now since we have every single variable, what we can do is take the original equation that we started with, right? Take the original equation and then plug in all the numbers that we got. So we got negative 1 for A, and then for B we got 1, right? And then for C we got 0. And so now we take this, and now we can take the integral of this. So when we take the integral, well, the first thing we do is for this one, pull out a negative 1 and just split it into two different integrals, and then continue on. And then so now we can do some u substitution. So for u substitution, we can set u is equal to x minus 3, take the derivative of each side, so we get du is equal to dx, right? Because the derivative of x is just 1. So if I set all of that equal to u, it'll be 1 over u. So remember, the negative stays there. And since this is two different integrals, the negative's only on this one, not this one. So, and you also have to remember that the integration, when you integrate 1 over u, that turns into ln u, and then the negative comes down. You multiply it, so it's negative ln u. Over here, we have x over x squared plus 1. And then for that, we also do some u substitution. So u is equal to x squared plus 1. Take the derivative, so it's 2x dx, right? And then we divide each side by 2, because we only have an x here. So divide each side by 2, so we get du divided by 2 is equal to x. So remember that this du divided by 2 is the same as 1/2 multiplied by du. So therefore we can have 1/2 multiplied by du, and then the entire thing becomes u. And once again, when you integrate 1 over u, you get ln of u and multiply by 1/2. And then remember that since the original equation started in x form, since it was all x's as variables, you can't leave it as u. So then therefore you have to plug in the actual thing that you substituted for. For example, here it was u, so it's x minus 3. So we plug in x minus 3 here. And then for u here, it's x squared plus 1. And don't forget the plus c, because they'll count off for that. And you don't want to do all this work and just forget about the plus c. So I hope that helped, and thanks for watching.